2, 1. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, and also part of the Hockey Podcast Network. We are, of course, have a read from DraftKings. Let me quickly read this before we get to our guest. It is Super Bowl 60 deserves a sportsbook built for the moment. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60, puts you right in the center of the biggest game of the year. Anything can happen during the Super Bowl, and DraftKings has your back with early exit. If your player goes down in the first half, you still get paid in cash. And when your bet settles, no bonus bets, no waiting. While other sports books don't offer injury protection, DraftKings covers the entire first half, even the second quarter. And early exit works on live bets too. Pre-game or in-game, DraftKings have you covered. New to DraftKings, new customers can get bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Well, we have approached the Olympics finally here. I think it's going to be very exciting. For the first time since 2014, the NHL is back in the Olympics. Lots of storylines to get into with this. And who else but Mr. Canada is joining us to talk about the Olympics. Peter Loubardias, how are you? Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Kevin. And even for you to name me that way is actually an incredible honor and a privilege because it's very true. I can't even tell you what goes through my veins during the Olympic Games, and it's not just hockey for me either. It's anyone that wears the maple leaf in any sport. With everything that's kind of going on in the world, I think it might matter to me more now than it ever has, and that's hard to do if you really know me up close and personal. It moves the needle for me in a way that I don't even understand at 60 years of age. But I'm excited beyond belief for the men's hockey competition, the women's hockey competition, curling, you name it. But and I'm sure we'll get to it, but what an incredible stage for this event that was set last February at the Four Nations. And I was lucky enough to be in Montreal for the night of all nights in some ways. And, a night that I think, if you're of the right age bracket, took us back to places that we never thought we'd see again. And we're not going to see that again at the Olympics. I mean, the rules and everything prohibits some of that stuff. But Kevin, that tournament was the most competitive high-level hockey I've ever seen in my entire existence, going all the way back to, what was my first great impression of international hockey, which was the Summit Series back in 1972.
I was working that night, and our entire newsroom, once the first fight hit, we just lost it. Like, it was just something else. That was, and I think a lot of the political landscape around that for sure certainly hit. That was incredible.
Yeah, I was in row 6 behind the Canadian net with my son, and he's 19 now, and he doesn't get it yet. Like, he loved it, don't get me wrong. He didn't like the end result that night. But I said to him, and I'll share this because I say it often. I said, son, you're going to be in all kinds of conversations in your life about hockey, and that night is going to come up probably for as long as you're alive. And you're going to be able to look at that group of people and go, yeah, I remember it well. I was in row 6
of one of the greatest hockey cities in the world.
Oh, it's the Mecca. There's
no question.
It's a special place. It's a Montreal Canadiens special place. But yeah, despite the loss that night, incredibly grateful, and spent a lot of money to see it. And I would have spent quadruple what I spent to see it.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, let's look at this Olympic team, and there's a little bit, few different players, especially a forward. You got Bo Horvat, you've got Tom Wilson, you've got Nick Suzuki you've got Travis Konechny out, you've got one of the Seth Jarvis out. We are still waiting on Brayden Point officially, but Sam Bennett replaced Anthony Cirelli. Just at a quick 200-foot view, what's the difference between this team and the Four Nations team?
Well, I think it has a little bit more grit, a little more size. I mean, Tom Wilson is an incredibly unique talent. And, he has the potential, even though, we've talked about things that happened at the Four Nations that he was not a part of that aren't going to happen again. But Tom he's a unicorn. He is a large, fast skating, physical man who is a deterrent, who is going to make life miserable on opposing defenses on the forecheck. The rink's even a little bit smaller than NHL standards, which again, even, I was watching the U.S. women play Czechia today, and, you could tell that, it's a little smaller. It's only 3 or 4 feet. So don't get me wrong. I'm not making a big deal of it, but that is going to play more in his favor. And so that to me is the difference. And the truth of the matter is, the way I look at it is, and I think about this kind of stuff a lot, and we are blessed in our country in the sense that, especially at forward, Kevin, those decisions were hell. I mean, I don't like to use those kind of words even now, even though we're free to do that. But no thanks. Like, those are some of the people that have been left off, including guys that helped you win, other players. Like, we have an abundance of riches right now at the forward position in a lot of ways. But it's a little different for me on defense. It's obviously different in goal, but it's really, well, it's not really, it is. It's at forward where there's been some interchangeable parts, and you build your team in a lot of ways, no matter what anybody's going to say. And I don't want to disrespect, because, and we'll get into this, somebody's going to have to play Sweden in a big game. But it's hard not to look at the two teams and not think that they're not on a collision course again. Now, it may not play out that way. That's the beauty of one-game showdowns once you get to the quarterfinals. But I'm building my team in part based on some of the things and a lot of what I would have learned at the Four Nations. And the truth of the matter is, the U.S. is in a hell of a cycle, and they are maybe just starting to scratch the surface when you think about this year's Olympics, and then the 28 World Cup, and the next Olympics in 2030.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the two kids, the one kid made it. We'll talk about him specifically, but are you okay that the two, I mean, obviously with Bedard, I think that's a very tough decision. And I wonder if he was healthy, if they would have maybe considered this more. And then Matthew Schaefer as well. Are they missing out, or is this, we can wait till next time?
Kevin, when you have this many tough decisions, here's how it works. If we win, we made the right decisions. Yeah. If Canada loses, we made the wrong decisions. I don't look at it that way. I never have, and I never will. When things don't go well for us, and there's been some events lately that haven't gone real well for us, people are really quick sometimes to point to roster construction. With this team, that's not going to be the difference, in my opinion, between winning and losing. Because you have to come to the understanding as Canadians, and we're not there yet. We're not. And listen, you will not talk to anyone who wants to give up the top of the perch less than me. No chance. It matters, and I want to stay there. But I've also watched international hockey my whole life with a magnifying glass, and I understand, okay, we haven't got there yet, but I'm going to go there because it fits a perfect part of what I'm saying. 2014, Sochi. Arguably the greatest Canadian performance in an international men's best-on-best tournament that there's ever been. We outscored our opponents 21-6. Yet, we are life and death with Latvia at 1-1 midway through the third period. And Carey Price makes an unbelievable save off Loris Darzinch, former Western Hockey Leaguer. We eventually find another goal behind Kristers Gudlevskis, who could barely breathe by the time that game was over. And that's not an exaggeration. So it's so finite. Look at last year's final of the Four Nations. Jordan Binnington makes 3 or 4 incredible stops before, Austin Matthews lost his assignment, left Connor McDavid, and he went top shelf for the win. There's the difference.
Yep.
Right there. So I can't get into that game really of roster construction when the depth is so great. It's not great in goal. Let's be honest. But it's pretty darn good everywhere else, especially up front. And yet Canada's also in a spot where they're so blessed because without Sidney Crosby, and not just Sidney Crosby, the player, more importantly, who he is and how he brings people together and the standard that gentleman sets. I wonder where we're going to be a little bit when he goes. But we've got him for now, and we've got McKinnon, and McDavid is arguably the most talented human that I've ever watched in my whole life. Cale Makar, for me, is the next coming of Robert Gordon Orr. So we've got some of the absolute best, and we'll see where it goes.
One guy that I think we will be talking about in that McDavid stratosphere is Macklin Celebrini.
Oh,
this guy, I cannot get over how good he is. I cannot. I think he's going to win a Hart, and I'm going to think he's going to win a Selke. I really do. I think he's going to be one of the. I don't think it's ever happened, but I think he's going to do it. Who are you playing?
I think he's going to be in some ways, the next leader of Canada.
Yeah.
I think he is so built from the same cloth as the guy that I just chatted about. And I remember at the World Championships, even though we lost to Denmark somehow, and again, these things happen. That one probably shouldn't, but it did. But to watch Macklin, a couple of things come to mind. So on that front, to watch him even at the bench, to see him sitting beside Sidney and soaking up every single ounce of information. You could just tell, even from afar. And then, I've had the chance to talk to people who were there, and they completely confirmed what I saw. His work ethic, his habits are second to none as a young person. He touches all areas of the game. And in his year at the World Junior, I'll share this with you. So I was around that team a little bit. And so there was a scrimmage and a practice game the night before they played the University All-Stars to help make the team, which they didn't do this year, but they have for years in the past. And I watched that scrimmage game, and then you have to decide, because you have too many players, as to who's not going to play in those games, because you kind of feel like, well, you got to open the door, right, to see and help make your final decisions. So long story short, after that scrimmage night, in my heart, I'm like, there is only one guy in this entire team for me that does not need to play against the University All-Stars. Him.
Yeah.
And now, listen, that's easy to say. It's a little bit of hindsight, but that's what I saw that night. Did I know it was going to happen like this quickly? No, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't do that. But you could see that this was a special guy. And I'd say the same thing about Matthew Schaefer, who's not going to be on this team, but you're going to be hearing from that guy for a long, long time.
Yeah. That guy's good too.
Oh,
jeez, that guy's so good. Oh.
We're lucky to have both of them in Canada. That's all. Thank God they're Canadian. That's all I've got to say.
Yes. Where are you playing Celebrini? Are you putting him? Would you put him with Mr. Crosby, or would you put him with Mr. McDavid, or would you experiment with both?
I think the tournament will dictate what happens there. I don't think about that stuff a lot, Kevin, honestly, because I think, everybody's got a whiteboard going into this thing, and we're all trying to mix and match and see what will work. And again, all I have to do is reflect back to what I saw at the Four Nations. Well, even on the final night in Boston, it was still a work in progress. Mitch Marner didn't start that game where he finished it. So,
he didn't.
I don't see anything necessarily with this group set in stone. What I will say is the sooner you can feel comfortable about your groups and get there and feel comfortable, that's going to be very helpful. And in many ways, Canada's not as lucky as the United States in the sense that, we play the Czechs, we play the Swiss. I generally don't say we, but in this case, I'm going to say we because I'm a proud Canadian and I'm never going to hide that. But in many ways, the round robin is how you get your group ready for what you hope is 3 one-game showdowns. And, people even forget sometimes that in Vancouver, we needed a 4th one-game showdown because we lost a round robin game to the United States.
That's right. And there was a
or either that, or I should remember, I saw 27 of the 31 games. I'm trying to think, but I mean, we did not have as high a seed as we could have, because if you remember, we played the Russians in the quarterfinal. So seeding does matter. But at the end of the day, you got to win 3. There's no reason Canada shouldn't be in a spot to win their group and play 3 sudden death games to win a gold medal.
No.
But funny things happen.
Yeah.
We went to a shootout in Vancouver against the Swiss, too.
Yeah, I think it's good that they're playing Czechia first, because I think it's that's a good test to get everybody kind of on the right pace here. They're not they should win their Czechia is probably their toughest opponent, but that Czechia is a sneaky good team too, so they can't rest on their laurels, and so That's the good thing with
Yeah,
that.
from a Canadian standpoint, I actually like it when it's harder, in the round robin, because I think it sets you up and prepares you better, because that switch, it flips fast.
Yeah.
Fast.
Yeah. And these games are going to be really intense. Like, I think that these are like, this is going to be another level of.
It is.
Yeah. On defense, I want to ask you about Drew Doughty, because I think that's the guy a lot of people I feel are underestimating. But I feel that this is the guy that is kind of my X factor for Team Canada. He missed, I think the part of the story is he was one of the players that missed the 2020 in Beijing, unfortunately. Him and Crosby are the only two that were back, I believe, from 2014 that has that Olympic experience. And people forget, you don't, but others may forget. Drew Doughty and Matthew Tkachuk, although they may not play against each other, if it comes down to it, Mr. Doughty and Mr. Tkachuk do not have a lot of love for each other. And as much as Tom Wilson is going to cause some havoc, I do think Drew Doughty is going to play a very important role in this tournament. Are you seeing it the same way, or what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are this. This will very likely be the swan song for him. Remember, he was 20 years old in Vancouver in 2010. 20. Talking about Drew Doughty.
Yeah.
You can only fight Father Time for a long time. But here's what I will say. I'm not sure how many people on that Canadian team care more about being on that Canadian team than him. Like, he has been questioned even recently for some of his efforts in LA about, are you as dialed in as you should? Because we know you're going to be dialed in February. It means a lot to him, Kevin. And I think, we'll see. Early in the Four Nations, it was hard for him, but he adjusted. And all he did was get better and better and more reliable and more reliable. And, in sports, it's hard to know exactly when some of that effectiveness isn't going to be there. But I have one thing that I think about a lot, and one line that I live by when I analyze sports. You don't necessarily win with the best players, you win with the right best players. And I'm going to go down on this ship with this guy right now, because he's earned it, he's deserved it, and he has done nothing. And it might change. I'm not like, people are going to watch, and if it doesn't go well, they're going to say, well, you see, we should have taken Schaefer, we should have done something else. Well, this guy's never let us down, ever, on this stage. It might happen this time, but he deserves to get the chance. And you know what? Even with that, Kevin, there's 8 guys.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, he won't play as much.
Oh yeah, they've got a solid defense that they don't need to rely on him for sure. I mean, they've got the shut down Pareko and Sanheim, and Makar and Tays are going to do their thing, and Josh Morrissey is there. They're fine. They're fine. They don't need him to be 2010 Drew Doughty. He needs to play with passion, and he'll be fine. He just needs to be part of the cog in the wheel.
He needs, in many ways, to help younger people understand how to manage when it's really difficult. That's what experience does.
Yeah. Yeah, just on a side note, I've developed this symptom here, Peter, called rebuild fatigue, because we're talking about it with the Flames, we're talking about it with the Canucks, and there's all this talk about the importance of veterans and lineups, and we keep hammering on how important it is, even when you're in the rebuild mode, how important veterans are to this process to set the standard, to let people know how to prepare, how to mentor. It is so important, and that's exactly where Drew Doughty is going to fly in here. I mean, you just made me realize something. Drew Doughty played at 20 years old. Macklin Celebrini is playing at 20 years old. There's a perfect connection of just letting a guy know how to get yourself ready for something that's going to be very different for Celebrini. I mean, he'll be good, but he may not dominate the way that he's dominating right now with San Jose. And just that challenge is going to be very fascinating to me.
Kevin, you know what was amazing for me about the Four Nations? Nobody dominated.
No.
That's what for me made it the most competitive men's hockey competition I've ever seen. When it is really hard for the likes of McDavid and McKinnon and Matthews and like you name your Barkov, you name your favorite player and your favorite NHL star. That was one of my greatest takeaways from the Four Nations. I left that tournament going, I've never seen anything this competitive and this difficult for the greatest players on earth to set themselves apart.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's try to unpack this goaltending situation. Who are you starting on Thursday versus Czechia?
I'm starting Jordan Binnington. And I'm probably going to start that way, but be very open to not necessarily finishing that way. And, I can use two very quick Olympic scenarios. Like not everyone is Carey Price in 2014. In 2002, when Canada won its first gold medal in 50 years, Curtis Joseph started. Marty Brodeur finished. Roberto Luongo, if I remember correctly, it was flipped with him and Brodeur, if I remember right, and time goes by. And I got a pretty good memory, but sometimes these days it's not as good as it used to be. But that one didn't start that way. And you know what? This one may very much not end the way it starts. Because you know what's the most important? How it ends, not how it starts. So I'm going to go with Jordan because, again, he earned it. He's done it, and he earned the right to start. But that's it. After that, I'm going to probably give somebody else the nod in game 2, and then I'm going to go from there.
Do you see all three playing, or are they going to go to 2?
No, and I don't know who 3 is, and I don't know. Maybe Logan Thompson starts against the Czechs, and it's a completely different situation. My experience tells me hockey people like to trust the people that have done good things for them, and that sometimes almost to a fault. I think Jordan Binnington's going to play against Czechia, but I think the leash is not long.
Fair. We just got some breaking news here, Peter.
Okay.
Seth Jarvis is replacing Brayden Point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me incredibly sad for Brayden because I've known him, since he was like 14 years old. And yeah, it breaks my heart, to be honest. It just, it's very Steven Stamkos like. And my favorite thing about Brayden going back to when he was in his 15-year-old year. He turned 16 with the Moose Jaw Warriors. That guy has always been great when it's mattered the most. Regardless of the role, the situation, it's special. He has special, nothing's too big for him, knows how to be at his best when it's like, who scored the goal in the bubble in the 5th overtime? Like, all this guy, like, I have a phrase and it about him, and it happened because he scored a huge overtime winner against Medicine Hat back in that 2012 Western League season. And I jumped out of my almost chair and yelled out, "He did it again." Well, and then that's kind of all he's ever done since. So, yeah, I'm heartbroken, to be honest. I knew it was going to come. With every passing day, I'm like, okay, maybe he's going to be okay. Maybe he's going to be okay. But yeah, there you have it.
Yeah, I'm also heartbroken for Cirelli too. I mean, just
absolutely
that, like, just before everything, and I'm heartbroken for both of them. But yeah,
stinks. It stinks.
Yeah, you're preparing all year, and then you go through that. That is just brutal.
And you never know if you're going to get another chance.
No, that's true. You don't. That's the thing about winning, right? It's so rare it comes up. Like, it's so hard to win championships. People think it's easy on your video game, but it's hard in real life to win championships and to get where you're going.
And the other part of it is, Kevin, that's really important is we haven't had a best on best competition at the Olympics since 2014.
No.
That's a big window of time. And if history has taught us anything, can I look at you in the face on this podcast and tell you that I think it's going to be this way forever? No, I can't.
I can't. No.
I wouldn't even. I'm not even thinking 2030 in France is a for sure.
No.
So, like, it's absolutely heartbreaking for these guys who are right there, and you make the team and you're in the window. Well, 4 years from now, like, Anthony Cirelli's not going to play in the Olympics. It's not going to happen. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really hard.
For sure. So yeah, again, Seth Jarvis added Brayden Point off the Canadian Olympic team, unfortunately. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code XXX. That's code XXX to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets. If your bet wins in partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPNY. Connecticut, all 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win. Let's look at the competition. And I mean, I think let's start with everyone's some presumption number one contender. And the controversy with the U.S. is they left off Alex DeBrincat, Cole Caulfield, and Jason Robertson. From your brain, what do you think the U.S. is thinking here?
I don't have a lot different to say about the United States than I probably do about Canada. I think the American program has gotten so strong that, like Canada, they have some incredibly hard decisions to make. And I don't blame him, because if I was Bill Guerin, I would have a tough time moving away from what I saw last February too. that was a heck of a team. And it's a team that like is young and growing and has a defense that is terrifying.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
In all the best ways. So they're in an incredibly great, we've got some guys kind of ready to age out, they're for the most part, Kevin, they're right in the wheelhouse. They might be able to run it back almost as it is again in 2030 and certainly in 2028. Now they won't because the world doesn't work that way. But like they have made some changes. Tage Thompson was not in that equation. But again, I'm not going to say anything about roster construction because those decisions are so incredibly difficult. And I guess what I should have mentioned to you before when we were talking about Canada is, what's really important, I think, when you make these decisions is not necessarily who's the best at hockey, but who do you think's going to be at their best when it's really hard? Because that's the separator. And those aren't the same two things. Those stages, Kevin, are not for everybody.
No, that's totally fair. And for the U.S., the one thing that I think is part of their argument, and I heard Emily Kaplan say this, is you could argue that if from the U.S. perspective, they did not have Quinn Hughes in their lineup last time at the Four Nations, and they will have him this time. And that is, like, you talk about tough decisions. I mean, holy smokes, they left Lane Hudson out of that lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a damn scary defense. And without Quinn Hughes, that's a damn scary defense. And now you have Quinn Hughes. I just think that's their biggest addition.
They didn't have McAvoy for the title game either.
No.
Don't forget about him.
That's true. Yes, that's right.
We kind of got lucky. We didn't have Makar in the round robin game, which really, really hurt us. And they didn't have McAvoy and they didn't have Hughes. So, further to what Emily said, I guess a little bit further, hey, the U.S. is in a different world. They're going to really disappoint some great players every time this stuff comes around. And I'm here to tell you those decisions for that country are only going to get harder, not easier.
For sure. It's good and bad how good everybody else is becoming. I mean, it's good for the international game. For us that want to sit at the Canadian perch forever, it makes it a little bit scarier.
It is scary. And there's a lot of things that we could get into for hours, to be honest, about how the landscape has changed and certain things that concern me about where players are going to end up living and having their kids. And a lot of players don't want to play in our country anymore. And that's concerning.
That is.
So we're always going to produce great players. That's never going away. But the challenge is more difficult today at all levels, Kevin, not just this one. All you got to do is look at the last 3 World Juniors to understand, and people don't get it very often. But again, I'm going to show you, even when Canada has won the World Junior, sometimes 4 and 5 years in a row, there's the difference.
Yeah.
We won a World Junior in the summer in Edmonton, Alberta, in a game where in overtime, the puck was on edge and Mason McTavish kept it out, and we went down to the other end and scored when Kent Johnson won it in overtime. We've lost 3 straight elimination games to the Czechs. And again, this is a bigger, deeper conversation. And not every year is the same. But we lost this year on a puck that went off the guy's skate with $1:11 to go. Last year, we took a questionable penalty in Ottawa, and they scored with 40 seconds to go on the power play. And the year before that, a puck gets banked off Oliver Bonk's skate with 11 seconds left. You can't miss that stuff. Now, are there other factors that certainly you feel like we should never lose in a quarterfinal? It's fair. But we need to start understanding that other countries are pretty good too.
Yeah.
And they don't like us. And their standard is beating Canada, which is a great compliment, which is an incredible compliment. But that comes with getting everybody's best all the time.
Yeah. Before we get to goaltending, we were talking about people I'm heartbroken for. I am heartbroken for Michael Backlund, because this would have been such a great opportunity for him to play for Team Sweden. I kind of think, I mean, I know you don't want to get into roster construction, but I do feel it's a little bit of a miss not having that guy with that type of professionalism. That I mean, you had talked for years about the importance of Michael Backlund. You know this firsthand, covering the Flames, but I am absolutely heartbroken that we're not going to see Michael Backlund in the Olympics, even though would be between Team Sweden. I think that guy deserved it so much, and he's been so good this year too. Anyway, that's a whole.
He has. He has. Like, yes, I work for the team. Yes, I'm biased, but I've been watching Michael and dealing with Michael for a long time, and what can I tell you, Kevin? Life, in many ways, certainly throw the word fair out of any dictionary. There's no such thing. So let's cut to the chase. And the truth is, back-to-back events, same coach. The coach makes the decision in Sweden. He's not a big fan. That's the bottom line. And what you see and what I see and what he thinks are different. Guess what I've come to learn in life? Most of the time, we don't have the vote. And when you don't have the right vote, you can lose. Now, yeah. I'm heartbroken for him, and I will say this to you, and I've never really shared this publicly before, so take this for what it is. Forget about hockey. I've been around professional athletes for a long time. When Michael Backlund retires, I don't care where I am in North America, if I have the means, and hopefully I will be at his retirement night and his press conference. I can't say that maybe about, for sure, anybody else.
Yeah. We've talked on the podcast about with him that I imagine that they're in the new arena. They're going to build an office space for Michael Backlund.
I hope so.
He's going to be doing something with this team for the rest of his life, whether that is
coaching. If he wants to.
Yeah, sure. I would just build that office and just, you take your time.
leave it open for him to whenever he wants to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've never thought about it really, and I'm embarrassed to almost say I think because sometimes I've asked guys those questions over the years before they're even comfortable. I remember asking Matt Stajan because I think so highly of him. I think a couple of years before he shut it down, because I just saw a guy that I thought would make a great coach, and it would be a shame if he's not involved. Now, at the time, he wasn't ready to say yes, and that day kind of looked at me like, Peter, I'm not ready for this conversation. In the end, I guess I had a clue about where I was going because he has. Mm-hmm. am sad to say almost that I don't know if I ever went down that road with Michael. And maybe because when I stepped away a few years ago from, the radio color job, there's probably no reason at that point to even think about asking him.
I mean, it's not now. I mean, he signed a new 2-year deal. It's still going to be a while. So,
but you know what? The next time I see him, I'm going to ask him.
Fair enough.
If he has any interest, because now you've made me curious.
Well, there we go.
There you go.
In terms of goaltending, though, is it fair to give this edge to Sweden?
Or is it in the whole tournament?
Yeah.
No, I don't know if it is fair. And here's why I say that. Do I think that's a heck of a group over there? Yeah. Do I think guys over there are playing really well? Sure I do. Has anybody ever done it yet when it's really mattered on a stage like this? Nope. So hey, I think the Americans have incredible goaltending too. But to this point, and I get all the naysayers, I'm not even 100% probably on board myself. I just told you 20 minutes ago that it would be a short leash if it was for me. But we haven't seen a lot of best on best hockey lately. I did see one guy get it done in a gold medal game recently.
Yeah.
Now, again, we might have another Canadian tournament where, like I said, we went over it. One guy starts, doesn't necessarily finish. And you still get the result you want to get. Swedes are, they're really good. The Americans' depth in that area is really good. I don't know. For me, Kevin, you got to do it when it really matters.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
I'm a hard marker, I guess, that way.
That's totally fair. Which team, I think the three favorites are probably Canada, US, Sweden, but which team are you seeing is going to have the potential to cause some chaos?
Yeah, in regards to the quarterfinals, I think what makes it scary all the time, Kevin, and I talked about even, the Canadian example against Latvia in 2014 with an incredible team, the most dominant team, arguably in best on best history, you could make an argument. And there they were against Latvia, because the biggest issue for the favorites in those games is not necessarily the opponent, it's themselves. Because if you're Latvia or you're Slovakia or you're Switzerland or, however that's going to play itself out, you're playing with house money. And it takes one incredible goaltending performance, bad penalty, some opportunistic scoring. I've just seen too many of those examples. And if the Finns had Barkov, I'd put them, that's what we saw last year at the Four Nations. There was not a lot to separate those four groups.
No.
Even though no doubt in my mind, the two best are Canada and the United States, the same way I feel. And again, I think a big factor in this tournament will be, do I want to play the Swedes in a semi potentially? No. But guess what? You got to get there first. And I don't love the Czechs goaltending, or I would designate them for sure as the most dangerous of the rest of the groups. But, there's a lot of holes in the Czech lineup. Now, they've got some great players, don't get me wrong. So if you're saying, do I think they'll play for the bronze medal? Yeah, it's hard for me not to look at the groups and think that they won't. But I never count out the Finns. How could you?
They find a way.
So if that ends up being the 4 or 5 quarter, it'll be unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. And I think one of the other storylines will be like a lot of these players didn't get it. I mean, a lot of the Czechs, the Germans, some of these the Slovaks, I mean, not being a part of the Four Nations, I think that they're going to be pushing really hard to prove that they should have been part of that tournament as well going forward. However, you do that World Cup of Hockey, that they have to be a part of it. And I think that's going to be fascinating. I just think I mean, I think that there's the obvious 3: Canada, US, Sweden, but I think I think we're going to see some incredible hockey here. And
Absolutely. And I do think after the Czechs and Finns, there's certainly, how they talk in drafts, Kevin, how you tier people or you tier teams. For me, that's where that tier stops. It stops after the Czechs and the Finns. And, the Finns seem to always find a way to do something. So I'm not discounting them. I mean, even with the Czechs goaltending, I mean, it's young, but Lucas Dostal is played some pretty great hockey for Anaheim. They're doing okay the last time I checked.
Yeah.
Like this is why I love it so much. Because you don't know. You can think And, I was really lucky in 2010. I was lucky enough to call 8 men's games. And those games weren't Canada. I wasn't, and rightly so, with the king, Chris Cuthbert, running the show, and he's going to run it again. A guy who I just love and admire beyond belief. And, Gord Miller was there. And, so I got 8 games, and in some cases amongst, the lower base teams. But I had the great fortune of doing some unbelievable games. And I mean, it's awesome. It's gonna be fabulous.
Yeah. What was your favorite game, Colin? What were some of your favorite games from 2010 that you remembered?
Well, my first game that I got to do was the Czechs and the Slovaks. And Kevin, honestly, with how things have kind of gone in some ways in my career, I will still go back and watch some of the 2010 Olympics because sometimes I can't even believe I was actually in that chair. I have to remind myself it still feels like a bit of a dream. So yeah, as a kid, knowing I wanted to be a broadcaster who loves international sport with every ounce of my fiber, the first game and Yager and it was a terrific game. That the other one that really, 2 others that came to mind in one of those 5 versus 12 games, which is going to happen again. The format is still the same, where those teams have to play an extra. The Czechs beat Latvia in overtime on a goal by David Krejci at UBC. I called that one. And, the Swiss, who had a very good Olympics, they gave the U.S. everything they could handle in the quarterfinal. And I was lucky enough to do that game. And Zach Parise, scored both goals in that game, including an empty netter late for the U.S. to win 2-0. So those would probably be, of the 8, my 3 favorites.
Fair. Well, Peter, this was absolutely great. An absolute honor to have you on to talk about this. I'm very excited to watch, and I don't mean this in any disrespect to the Flames and Canucks, but just for this year, it's been a tough watch to watch a lot of National Hockey League hockey this year, especially with the Flames and Canucks, just the way things are going. And I understand why we have to go through what we have to go through with both of those teams, but it's excited to talk about winning hockey. I thank you very much for coming on. For everyone else, just tell us kind of what you're up to now, as much as you wish to share. And
yeah, well, I mean, I don't do a lot of these just because, and who knows, maybe I'll get in trouble for doing this one. But, for the last 3 years, I've worked as a scout for the Calgary Flames. I'm a reserve list scout, which, short form is I spend a lot of time watching other NHL teams drafted players and prospects. And so that it's the busiest hockey job I've ever had. I can tell you that. But I'm incredibly grateful, and I couldn't have
for sure. Oh, you're cut out just a second there.
Flames in some capacity now for a long time, and I'll be cheering for Craig Conroy and Ryan Huska till the day I leave the earth. I can tell you that. And there's a lot of other amazing people in the organization as well. So very grateful, very lucky, very thankful to have been given this opportunity.
Well, it was great to have you. And thank you. Of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I am Cave EVOLE on Twitter, Sean Beardy Canuck 03, Tyler TNOBLE, Devin Gord, Devin Holdsmith on Instagram, Chris Schneids on social media. Also give Fireside Chat a follow, as well as they talk Flames, and join me every week to talk Flames as well, and the Hockey Podcast Network. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.